Tommy Rees leaves Notre Dame on that lovely plane that Alabama sent up, which, by the way, Pete, your picture from the airport of the Alabama plane reminded me of the TV station in Salt Lake City tracking the Notre Dame plane as they went to interview Urban Meyer in 2004. Like, I never, like, plane tracking season never gets old to me.
I love a good stakeout.
So, but Tommy Rees headed to Alabama, and this was a case where, and we've discussed this on the show quite a bit, like Nick Saban wants you to come in and run Alabama's offense. He does not want, he appreciates your previous experience, but he doesn't want you bringing your offense whole cloth. He's going to say, here's what we do. You're going to learn our terminology. You're going to teach this way. But the thing is, that offense is so broad, it can be kind of anything. But Tommy Rees seems like he's the type of person who fits what Nick was looking for.
I think in a lot of ways, it's like an updated version of maybe who they were offensively when they whipped Notre Dame in the BCS title game.
The A.J. McCarron days, yeah.
Where it's like, this is built around the run. It's built around an NFL-style offensive line. Rees is very multiple with how he uses tight ends, which not a lot of people do well. And it's not just Michael Mayer. I mean, they've had more tight ends drafted out of Notre Dame or playing in the NFL than they've had wide receivers over the last 5 years. He knows how to get those kids that position developed, and it's a real pain to deal with because not a lot of people do a good job of it. So a lot of motions, a lot of shifts. I think it's very NFL style in terms of how Rees likes to run it. The demands he puts on the quarterback. I think my big question down there is like, how does he make it work with a first-year starting quarterback, assuming they don't get somebody late in the portal? And then how did he adapt to a place where, I mean, I remember reading some stuff on Bill O'Brien, and they were averaging 40 points a game. And it was like, well, he's got to go only 40 points a game.
They were ready for that to end.
Man, that is a different statistical expectation than what Rees has operated under his entire life. So that's going to be a big adjustment as well.
Yeah, they were going to have to discover, and look, they've been recruiting well enough that they should have it on the roster. But they didn't have a lot of difference-making receivers last year at Alabama. And I think that was the frustration. And it's a little unfair because they had just had this incredible bounty of unbelievable receivers for several years. Like, really going back to when they signed Jalen Waddle and Devontae
Probably
Smith
would have liked to average it out a little bit, huh?
Yeah,
Instead of having 5 of them on the roster, five number 1 receivers in the NFL on the roster at the same time.
It's a little unfair. A little unfair. But how do you see Rees working with Saban? I mean, he's worked with Brian Kelly, but if you think about it, he's not really worked with a lot of other people. This is pretty limited experience here.
Yeah, I mean, his professional sort of connections outside of Brian Kelly or Nick Sirianni in Philadelphia, and then he was with Pat Fitzgerald for a season at Northwestern. That's it. So it's interesting to me because talking to sources on this, like Georgia and Alabama were the 2 places Rees wanted to go if he was going to stay in college, because that's like the Nick Saban finishing school. Either you're working for Saban or you're working for Saban 2.0. Can we say that with Kirby?
Oh, we can say that.
Okay, yeah. All right. You're getting that same level of professional development. I think that if Tommy had gone to LSU with Brian Kelly a year ago, it would have been same job, new place. Staying at Notre Dame let him sort of branch out a little bit, where he had more autonomy under Marcus Freeman. To now go to work for Saban, I think that's sort of the last step in either you're going to be a Power 5 head coach or you're going to be an NFL coordinator, usually within 2 years, maybe less. So I give Rees some credit because like he had a job at Notre Dame for as long as he wanted it. And you go to Alabama, the clock's ticking the second you hit the ground.
So what do you think his end game ultimately is? Would he like to be in the NFL? Would he like to be a Power 5 head coach? Where does this go? I
think that highly likely NFL coordinator before Power 5 head coach. I think he's open to either, but he is much more of an all ball all the time guy. I He does not like dealing with media a whole lot. I think he's sort of learning how to process media criticism and not let it eat him up. I mean,
he won't have to deal with it at Alabama.
Yeah,
he's talking to them.
Upside,
He'll be criticized a lot, but he won't have to talk to anybody.
The guy takes slights very seriously, and he finds motivation in it. But I think ultimately his future is in the pros. I think that could be kind of quick, depending on how things go at Alabama. But ultimately, I think an NFL OC job is probably the spot he wants to be.
Well, Bill O'Brien had obviously been one before and been an NFL head coach, but Brian Dable did 1 year at Alabama, went from NFL tight ends coach to NFL OC after the year as Alabama's OC, and now you see where he is. So I think it's a pretty smart move. If that's the goal, then you do well there, and that will be your next stop.
I don't want to steer the conversation in a different direction, but maybe I do.
Yeah, you do.
I just have a question. Because I haven't talked to Pete since the season ended and since signing day and the 5-star, the Bowen fiasco and all this stuff. Like, obviously, this is going to be a very important hire for Notre Dame. There's no question. And whoever gets hired is probably going to be propped up for a lot of success early on.
I'll just say this is the most important hire Marcus Freeman will make. However long he's at Notre Dame, this is the most important hire.